Hello and welcome to our panel today. My name is Susi Ondrusová. I work for Radio FM4 as the music editor, and today we will be talking about what is written here, banning content of dubious performers. Dubious has become my favorite word over the last days. Moral censorship or acceptable regulation. I would like to introduce very shortly our speakers, and then we'll dive into the discussion. I have two things I need to tell you beforehand. One thing for you. It would be good for our discussion to elaborate the answers, and maybe if there is just a yes or no question, maybe elaborate so that we have a discussion rather than just statements. And I would like to invite all of you to join the discussion. There's nothing worse than being at a panel and then you only have like 5 minutes time for the audience feedback. So if you have a question and if you think that we are talking about something that you're not interested in and you would like to jump in and ask something, whatever it is, then just raise your hand. I don't know if we have a microphone, but we probably have somewhere. We do, or we don't, but we will be quiet and we will be listening. We have no microphone, but we will be listening, we will be hearing you perfectly. So on my right, Karl Fluch, music critic for the Standard newspaper. This gentleman here has a copy of the newspaper in his lab. That's a pink one, yes. Then Ivan Novak, mastermind behind Laibach and also co-creator of the arts collective Neue Slowenische Kunst. Welcome. And Maria Scharl, artist, and she did an installation that you can actually also see here called Not Your Heroes. And what it actually is going to bring us straight to the topic. So I will start with showing you a little. Oops, wrong. Yes. We will start with you, and maybe you explain. Oh, lights off. Yes. And maybe Maria, you can start with telling us about what Not Your Heroes, this project, was about.
This project I did for Pulver Festival this year in Feldkirch in Vorarlberg, and it's a series of 6 flags with the names of musicians.
This is the same installation at WUK?
Exactly, it's at WUK now, and the title is Not Your Heroes, because that's also the ending of the series. The concept is that we're going onto the festival and reading all these names of famous musicians like R. Kelly, Michael Jackson, Chris Brown, Ryan Adams, and numerous from the 70s. And at the end, you can see that these are not your heroes, because I wanted to create a feeling that you're looking at it like a festival lineup, kind of, and are excited for these artists to be at the festival. And then you get the resolution that it should not be a happy feeling, but like a conflicted one and not a heroic one.
How did you actually, some of the names, how did you actually pick these names, these artists?
So it was the time where R. Kelly's documentation, the documentation about R. Kelly came up, the surviving R. Kelly documentation, and then I just got into research and researched the music industry. I normally don't work with the music industry, just with the music industry, but this I thought was a good point to do it at a festival where it's super relevant. And after digging some stuff up, I found these names, and then I researched it and just took the names that were most prominent, actually.
Did you make a distinction between names of musicians that were actually now I'm missing the English word.
Were convicted.
Yes, thank you. Exactly, were convicted, or just names like I can see David Bowie in there.
Yeah.
That were accused but
So,
never charged.
with the flags, I didn't, but I did like an addition because I knew it was really radical to put all the names on there, even if it's even if they were not convicted. But I did a series of posters too, that were hanging all over the location, where where it's clearly stated that some of them were not convicted and what happened there. So I used the radicalness, but also put in like relevant information for the people to distinguish between that. But I also have to say that most of them were not convicted. And I don't think it's because they're not guilty, but because how the justice system works and also the patriarchal system works. And if you have money, you can just silence a lot of women with a non-disclosure agreement. So to distinguish which are, who is guilty and who's not is not so easy and shouldn't be like the total truth.
So from this piece of sort of cancel culture, call-out culture, let's talk about what it does to us as professionals, like for a journalist, for example. Karl, maybe you can talk a little,
So we have to share. Are you up there? What it does, I mean, my profession is also my hobby, or vice versa. So it's I'm also challenged as a human being listening to music if some case like this or like those comes up. And I mentioned before an incident about 20 years ago. I was flown to Bristol to interview Robert Del Nair from Massive Attack. Very charming, intelligent, funny guy. And a week later, news broke. Child pornography might have been found on his computer. And this was a situation where you're like, okay, what does that mean? Is he not the funny guy anymore? Was what he said not bright and thoughtful? And what does it, if the accusations are true or false? This was a very unusual, conflicted moment in my, for me, of course, and for everybody involved. It turned out nothing. There were no pictures found on his computer, and Massive Attack made a statement over their homepage then, and this was, of course, 20 years ago, so there was no shitstorm and social media confrontation. But it was for me probably the first time that I was forced to put myself in a position to think about it, what it means. Okay, we all knew about the groupie culture back then, but this was so far away and long ago, so it was part of the rock and roll folklore. But I don't know. There is a new sensitivity, and of course, and this was for me the personal point where I had to face this problem in a way. And Lee Hazelwood helped me out. He said there is a song about. I think it's his very first record, and he said he speaks about a town called Trouble, and he says most of the people are good. All the time, some people are good all the time, some people are bad all the time, but most of the people are good and bad most of the time. And this is not only funny, I think, it's also very true. And it brought me to a point where I thought, am I banging this, or that I should probably stop idolizing people too much, because if you idolize, you get a blind spot, and the blind spot can grow, and you don't separate the artist and the work anymore. It's fandom, and of course it's hard to do because you're a fan of music and you relate to the person who does it. But for me, this was a moment where I thought I will have to try stronger to separate the art and the work and the creator. Yeah. And I think this helps a lot, because I don't think it's any good to ban Michael Jackson from radio. This is in all of the towns in Vienna. We should know that out of sight is not out of mind, and it doesn't help. Yeah, I know that mainstream radio can't always explain that they play now Beat It but Michael Jackson blah blah blah. But for the average consumer or listener, it should be all information should be available. The song or the songs and the information what he was accused of, yeah, and how the story goes. So
So you would say that that everybody should make up their own mind and a personal decision whether they want to like something based on what they think this person is.
It always becomes very, very conflicted if moral comes to the on the table. Yeah, because when moral shows up, everybody becomes moral, and moral is, I don't think, a very good advisor. In many history has shown this many times, but other than that, we don't have anything other than morals. We have to judge people according to our personal moral standards. This is the ongoing conflict, yeah, and I don't have a solution. What for me works is that I try to separate work, the work and the artist as good as it gets.
So if the new Morrissey, I don't even know if there is a new Morrissey record coming out, would you make a decision not to run it and not to review it in the newspaper?
No, there was a new Morrissey only I think 2 months ago, and I did write a review, and it doesn't make the music bad or better. It's just a different angle to the artist that you have now. Yeah. Okay, he's a racist, nationalist, chauvinist, egomaniac. That's bad, but on the other hand, vegetarian of most of all, yeah. Oh my God. And
they're the worst of all.
No. There's only the Hitler comparison missing now. But I don't think I don't know. There's a Light That Never Goes Out is still an amazing piece of work, and he did it. Yeah, he wrote the song, and I'm sorry, I'm not capable to separate, to not enjoy the song because the artist became a strange person.
Ivan, can you maybe from your experience, your professional, personal experience with bans and censorship, can you explain what goes through your mind when you hear stuff like morals in this age? Because you've been around for Laibach has been around for such a long time, and
that's true. But we never were really part of the rock and roll business. I mean, we were, but not really. We never felt like a classical sex, drugs, and rock and roll band. And we had the chance to observe all these things from a small distance. And of course, it's hard to judge. It's, as you said, all people are bad and good most of the time. And the whole point of rock music is transgression. Basically, it's a
transgression. Transgression.
It's basically a culture which is based on being bad, as Michael Jackson actually said. He said, "I'm bad." And what would psychoanalysis do without Michael Jackson nowadays? It's a perfect case for that kind of analysis. And he is actually a symptom of something which is quite tragic. His life was tragic from the very beginning, as he was exploited by his family, till
His victim's
whatever.
life show was tragic as well.
Sorry?
His victim's life show were tragic.
Yeah, maybe not at the time when it happened. I mean, they obviously enjoyed, you know, the company with him. I know this is very problematic, but, you know, right now we are watching the film on Queen, on Freddie Mercury, and his, you know, superhero and so on, but he was...
Is Freddie Mercury not my hero anymore? What's with Queen?
what?
What is it?
No, I
What
said
is wrong
right
with
now we are watching all this, you know,
Yeah.
fabulous film about Freddie Mercury, who was a good singer and so on. You know, openly also gay later on when he realized that he has AIDS. But he was a huge pedophilian also and so on. People don't really talk about that. Yeah, this is, and him and, you know, others. Maybe I'm going too far, but, you know.
I have no idea about this.
Yeah, and things are not, but, you know.
That wasn't shown in the movie.
We were, of course it wasn't. Of course it
I want my
wasn't.
money back.
But
Talking about transgression, I mean, I understand that art has to shock or it has to have some sort of wake-up moment, but does it not become problematic when it become like there is a way of being provocative and there is a way of propaganda and like doing propaganda for a critical mindset, like for a belief system that is maybe not very forward thinking. Like there must be a difference between who was it? Joy Division being not being teenagers, but wearing this Nazi shit to provoke a reaction, and some other artists being sexist or promoting.
yes, but sexism is something that, you know, it's a debate of today. Basically, it's going on since the awareness of the sexism and so on. It's going on since, you know, only past few years. Before it was something that, you know, you were not even you were not really the right guy if you're not sexist, so to say. You know, with all the.
What does it mean?
What?
You were not the right guy if you were not sexist?
Well, it was part of the whole image of the rock and roll, you know? I mean, the part of the whole, you know, rock and roll image, basically, seriously. Like it or
yeah,
not.
if you look at it from a male perspective, that was it, but there were enough. Like, if you
I
can
think
look at the
women-
70s from a...
Women contributed. I'm not trying to defend men here, but, you know, women contributed in the whole culture. With,
you mean like groupie culture?
Groupie culture and everything else. I mean, there are women who are, you know, man-eaters, so to say.
I have so many questions. I was afraid that this is going to turn like into a yes or no conversation. So,
But excuse me.
Yeah,
one
yes.
question, please. Because I get a little bit mixed up between the acts of the artist and what he says and sings, and then actually how he acts in his life. You know, these are two different things, I guess. And I'm not sure what we're talking about. You know, because the Dubious, does that mean, you know, this unfortunate Mr. Kelly, obviously in his private life has an abusive character, but his music is still there, or we're talking about what
that is debatable. If you look at the lyrics from his Black Panties album, even that is debatable whether his behavior is not seeping into his lyrics.
No, in general, I would like to know what the main direction is actually on the panel. In which direction does it go? Do we speak about criminal acts, or do we speak about strange artists who are presenting themselves in Nazi uniforms on stage because they think that they are
I shouldn't have mentioned television.
want to tell something, and in Austria it would be forbidden.
I mean, I would like to say something. Like with the case of R. Kelly, it's perfectly clear that you cannot really distinguish between the artist and the art, because it flows into each other. The lyrics, the situations where abuse had happened was in the studio, so it was not. He is a private person, of course, but the acting out of the abusing was always in connection to his persona R. Kelly and not to Robert Kelly. And also like with Michael Jackson, where the lyrics are not that clearly debatable, I kind of can understand how you can separate that. I personally wouldn't, but yeah, I have empathy for people who do, but with R. Kelly, for exception, I would never, yeah, I can understand that because it's the same thing. And one more thing, like what you said about not keeping, yeah, it's not good to ban them from radio. There's also, with R. Kelly, it's super relevant for now to, when you don't play him on the radio or don't ban him from doing concerts, for example, he doesn't earn money. And now that he doesn't earn a lot of money, a lot of women come forward because now he doesn't have any more money to pay them for a non-disclosure. So I think it does make a difference in some cases that you do ban them from yeah, sort of concerts and radio maybe, but like on Spotify, yeah, I actually think they did it really good with the blocking action.
Mute button.
The mute button.
When I interpreted, so if R. Kelly writes a song about his thoughts about these last 2 years, we should not listen to that.
I wouldn't. You can do whatever you want, but I wouldn't.
Can I just jump in?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, I really don't understand. I'm not listening R. Kelly. I don't, you know. But
Nobody sing.
As far as I know, you know, most of hip hop, rap culture is actually sexist and chauvinist, including the female singers.
And exaggeration.
Yeah, it's a style. It's a style. They don't take you seriously if you don't.
This was his point. This was his point that it's a.
And not only rap and hip hop. I mean, you know, we all love Rolling Stones, but you know, their lyrics most of them are quite sexist. Brown sugar, come on. You know, it's not about heroin. It's, you know, chocolate.
But his point was, your question was about whether we're talking about the content of the song or the content of like the actions of the musicians. And R. Kelly is in prison because he was.
So he should be. I mean, obviously, most of them should be in prison.
So
if you ask me.
Who would want to listen to a song about you? Okay.
I admit
90 cents on the iTunes.
I admit I'm guilty to listening to songs from Charles Manson, who was convicted as second-degree mass murderer, and obviously he was not a nice guy.
So did Beach Boys.
Yeah, and so I could separate. I think there was not a second of seduction that I felt by this guy. Other than the fascination of evil, yeah, which you have when you are young and checking your place in the world, and stuff like this can be attractive, yeah. So yes, I don't think he should have been out of jail. He was a murderer, obviously a bad guy and pretty crazy probably too. And still, if I'm interested in these kind of people, which are, he had a shitty upbringing, and all these stories have stories as well, and so I'm just more lucky. Yeah, I just have been more lucky to probably not end up in jail or so, and I still think it's interesting to explore and go to danger areas, especially in art, because it's the core of art to explore those areas. Because if they would only work with what our average day, our average life, it would be boring as hell. So what was I saying? I forgot, but I probably could listen to I Believe I Can Fly and still hate it as much as 10 years before, as when I didn't know that he was a molester and sexist and rapist. So I think that's possible.
Do you want to ask something?
Well, I just wanted to say what Maria mentioned before, that she said that with R. Kelly, for example, so many people stopped to listen to him, or Spotify actually banned him from the music software. And I understand what you are saying, that especially art is there for maybe creating things which are forbidden in the normal society. But it is a big thing that if everyone is continuing to listen to the music of people, I mean, they get money for that. They get money for the views, they get money for the people who are investing their time in listening to their music. And I think it's not okay that those artists get that much of money when they are doing so many bad things to the society.
Sorry.
Maybe I just mention here that one thing that is happening in the music industry, and that's very interesting, is dividing music into genres.
In good or bad, or in genres? Like
Genres, and it's almost like good and bad anyway. But they divide them in genres. So you have very interesting fields of genres existing. From satanistic rock, Catholic rock, Nazi rock, all kinds of stuff. And it all exists, and there are specialized shops where you can buy these things and so on. And so this, even self-defining defining genres, they exist. And there are bands who are doing perfectly well, and they perform, for instance, I don't know, Nazi thrash music or something like this, that.
But should we guard the wider audience that might stumble upon a Nazi rock band on Spotify by protesting and having Spotify take them off?
Well, yeah, they should protest. I mean, I just came from protests in the center of Vienna right now.
The climate protests.
Climate protests, and they were all protesting in English, which was interesting, singing John Lennon, this guy. Power to the people.
Not our hero.
Power to the people. People do have power, supposedly. So there's lots of paradoxes here on this terrain, And if we go a bit wider, if we don't only stick to music, which is something connected to the youth culture, which is absolutely nonsense, but that's it. If we go back into classical music, there were bad guys there who did fantastic classical music. If we go to, art, filmmaking, Polanski, if we go to literature, you pointed out Celine and so on. This is all, or Knut Hamsun and so on. This is all great literature. Yeah, all great literature. What would you do? You wouldn't read great literature because the guy is a bastard? Most of them are. They're all frustrated, Otherwise, they wouldn't be an artist. They all have problems. Who would do an art if not out of frustration?
As well. There's happy
Sorry?
people.
But usually their art is usually quite boring. Also from experience, yes, of course.
But I do have a question. It seems a bit to me that by saying it was always like that, this is not an argument, isn't it? We're living in a society, as you say, there is I don't know how many thousand people out there demonstrating in the street for our planet. Things change.
Of course they do.
Should be changing. And it's the
Hopefully
youth
they do.
that is listening to music that is abusive, that is sexist, that is...
Right.
Okay, there is the act of the musician, but sometimes, and in a lot of cases, it is connected. So we kind of support the next generation listening to music that may make them abusers.
Absolutely.
They may think that it is all right to act like this. And I think this is one thing that we should have in mind, not to say it was always like this. Things change, and it's a good thing, actually.
I'm not saying it was always like this, but I'm saying that there was always, in the history, there were debates on on similar matters, even if we go back to witch hunt, I mean, women were burning because, somebody decided that they are witches, that they behave strangely, that they have strange sexual behavior or things like that, or they talk too much, nonsense or freedom speech or whatever. So witch hunt is, it has been there since ever. I know you're talking about sexual, but we live in a popular time with media everywhere, with daily control and distribution of news and so on, and things. Media actually exists on. Sorry.
Makes it harder to.
No, of course, but we live in bad times.
I mean, the exposure is the actual good thing here.
But calm down.
No, it's.
The more exposure there is, the better it is.
I'm not sure about that. This is.
Yeah, thank you. Hi.
Hello.
I'm thinking about some kind of transmutations because we have this beautiful Saliera here in Vienna, which was done by Benedetto Cellini, who was convinced of 3 murders and he couldn't work in Florence, and he was on the run. And there was this country in France where he was able to do something. So it's very individual. In nowadays society, which would be Florence, someone who's a murderer would not be really being enabled to show his work to the audience. I think there are some moments from the past already that this issue was on the table already in the past.
So why isn't it solved yet? I mean, it's 2019. It's not the time of witch burning. It's several hundred years ago.
But how would solving this look like?
By not promoting this kind of behavior, by not glorifying the dramatic existence of artists. You only, if you turn a blind eye at abuse and bad behavior, even doesn't have to be abuse, you're supporting it. And if you want to change what you hoped for earlier, you have to, begin it somewhere. No, and the past isn't really relevant for me at that point because it's the past.
I think we blame too much on rock and roll or pop music at all. I mean, think of Afghanistan. There are people getting stoned, killed with, as you throw hours of stones of them, and they are not allowed to listen to music. So, what explanation do you have for that? So it's not. I mean, this is of course a provocative, stupid argument, but. Just like you said, if you listen to these songs, you become somebody that like that. Yeah, I mean, I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I'm not afraid that if she listens to stuff that she finds in my collection, that she will become the next Charles Manson girl. So it's difficult. Did you say that? And we don't have answers, but I think. What irritates me in this kind of discussions is what you said before, that for you the guy is guilty already, and I still have this old-fashioned idea of proven innocent until proven guilty. Yeah? And I'm not trying to defend a guy like R. Kelly. I mean, he's probably done it all, yeah, and he should probably rot in cell. But still, if we lose those regulations for ourselves, how much better are we than the one we accuse?
I mean, like the rate of false accusations is in the USA it's 2 to 8%, and in Austria it's 5%. So I would promote for like crimes.
Convictions.
Yeah, for false accusations, like Verurteilungen, die nicht stimmten. And I would just promote a concept where the victim is not the one who has to prove its innocence or guilt.
No, I think that, of course, the law has to do its work, basically, yes. And if there's a criminal, should go and be convicted if there are proofs. But if you start to purify the music and all art, and only promote what's supposed to be good, it would be very, very boring on this world. I mean, totally boring.
Imagine Christian rock. All day long.
I don't want to talk about
what I miss actually is not here in this discussion, but
in the world,
discussion, in the media also. When people come out and I remember this band from Südtirol. They were sort of made up behind the scene. Actually, suddenly attracted a big crowd, and suddenly they were there, and then they came to Vienna, and there were like, I don't know, 3,000-4,000 people in the gasometer, and suddenly there came this discussion up that they have right-wing messages and right-wing attitudes and stuff like that, and I think and then the discussion to stop them playing, and I think the thing is,
they wanted to throw them out of the venue, did they not?
Sometimes they did, and they sometimes banned them from the cancelled shows with them, or they didn't book them anymore. So the difficult thing is actually with this expression of an artist, we should of course judge everything that comes out, and I think that we cannot really leave the artist just by his message which comes out of the ether. Of course his personality is part of the whole thing, and the act, how he creates the stuff, is very important too. So when I know that Mr. Weiwei works in China, and the way how his circumstances over there will influence his art very much, and how he expresses things, so in the positive and the negative sense. But I think it's very important to see how things created, and then of course which effect actually finally they have on people. So R. Kelly, if somebody copies him out of his songs and rapes women, I see the chances pretty small. Actually, I have no idea about if anybody's copying his behavior just because listening to his songs, So I think it's more this personal attraction there. The acts are the important thing. What is actually the artistic act, and what is the outcome of this? I think this is the discussion that we have to judge.
What do you mean? What is the artistic act? What do you mean?
Well, whatever, when it's a writer writes a book, and then read the book and see, okay, there is a clear message in there, and I don't want to accept this message, and I have some people, or it's racist or whatever. So I think the act is the important stuff.
Yeah, I think you can't really translate like a song to an actual direct act, because it's a whole cultural thing. So if there are like a lot of songs that are super sexist, like in even German rap and mostly in hip hop and rap, you make like sexual comments or rape culture so normal that the people think it's normal, and it shouldn't be. So I think it would make a difference if the
basically, I don't know, 50% or most of the stuff.
Exactly, that's the thing.
At the same time, you can like in our lineup, you can see that there is kerosene, there is kerosene, there is Aliona, there is women in the pop culture that are, their context is completely different. It's not sexist, it's all concrete, so it's possible to change a whole genre. It's possible. It's not illegal.
Well, I don't have a problem with
I don't think
that. Tries to change
it,
anything,
but
It's just that the boycott is if there's one side, of course there should be another. And if you have a problem with it, then you do your song and sing against it. I just have a problem with the position to make something guilty, ban it, and especially when there is like a criminal act involved, but they're not really criminal. We have this football player from Germany, Metzler, I think is his name, who was somehow connected with also child abuse pictures, and it's out, so you cannot make this anymore happen. So we don't know the status of the whole investigation, if there's really something with it or not, but the message is out.
Before the law comes the internet, and people judging and tweeting and destroying careers maybe as well. There's many cases I remember Bright Eyes had a case of being accused of rape, which was then taken back, but there was a short time of having them destroyed online. Is the internet helping here?
Funny.
Well, yes.
No.
There was a yes or no question.
No, internet is like an amplifier, basically. You know, it goes in both directions, and that's the fact. So it's making the fire bigger, and it's also kind of distinguish the fire in certain. Well, it gives the opportunity to distinguish the fire sooner or on a bigger level, but it goes both directions, and that's it. It doesn't really change very much. You know, the witch hunt gets even bigger. The pleasure goes even bigger. So everybody enjoys these stories, you know. Everybody is making its own conclusions. Aha, she wants money. There's another one who wants even more money, you know, and et cetera, et cetera.
Can I ask you, do you think, because I was working for you as a stagehand in the 80s even,
Where?
The reunion.
when it was in Overlay show, do you think that your career, which happened obviously like in the 80s, 90s, could be the same now with the internet?
No, of course it's different, and we're all fighting for trying to understand, you know, the metaphysics of today, so to say, how to function, you know, how to respond, how to give the statements and so on, you know, how to stay relevant and how to do good music, after all, since we are doing, you know, music also. But I want to say, I wanted to tell this one little story, if I can. Maybe it doesn't really have direct connection, but
Is it about football?
Indirect. No, it's not about. But I would just like to turn this situation a little bit on the other side. You know, of course, I'm from Laibach. You know, Laibach has been accused of all kinds of things, and I don't want to say that we are super democratic. You know, we try not to be, but yes, to a certain extent, we can also practice some form of democracy, since this is the prevalent, you know, model. Anyway, we were banned many times in different countries and concerts and so on. We still are, thankfully, which means that we are still maybe relevant. But we had a case once in Germany that a group of neo-Nazis wanted to come to our show, obviously because of, you know, their own ideas what Laibach is. They paid the tickets, but the organizer wouldn't let them in. And we said, you know, this is not okay. You know, they paid the tickets like everybody else. They should be able to come in, and we didn't want to start the show before they wouldn't let them in. So it was this really bizarre situation. And they came in, they were very quiet, you know, and listening and trying to understand what's happening and so on. And we had many times the opportunity to, you know, meet guys who declared themselves as neo-Nazis, talk to them, and not everybody liked our concert. Some of them did. But I think that, you know, you cannot divide audience. You have to put them all together. You have to face them. You have to conflict them, basically. They have to, the worst thing that it could happen to, you know, a band like Laibach, or musicians in general, is that you only have one kind of audience who is basically following exactly, you know, this happy tuning that you are presenting or whatever. I think there should be, as genres, I think that as genres should be mixed and, you know, jumping into each other. I think that the audience should be like that as well. And I
mean, to some, it would be a question of a safe space. Like, it's not so much only about you as a band deciding that you want to be a democratic, and you can't pick your fans, so you let everybody in because they paid. So
no, not because of that, but, you know, we like a diverse audience. We like,
yeah.
This is the reality.
But maybe there is somebody in the audience who is really offended and who is really who's felt threatened, not by...
He should leave or he should stay, and, you know, I mean, I'm offended many times listening music, and I'm kind of staying and listening it because I'm curious. I'm offended, but I'm also curious.
I don't know what will happen.
You can't always live in a comfortable, you know,
Safe space.
Safe space, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, how dubious and how problematic does the artist have to be, you know? Because entire popular culture is more or less based on W.C. Handy.
what? Sorry.
W.C. Handy was an ethnomusicologist who collected early bluesman thing, and he has the copyright to this music, you know.
Who?
W.C. Handy, that's his name. And then on the other hand, you have Goran Bregovic, who did the same thing. He literally picked all traditionals from ex-Yugoslavia and signed them into Universal as his originals. I mean, so it's obviously, you know, that there's this transgression thing in a palette of modernities within the popular culture, you know. And there's always some, I'm not justifying it, but there's always some exploitation at hand, you know. The Amanda Galas was ranking against Buju Benton, against exploitation of Whitney Houston, but nobody gave a damn until Whitney Houston died, you know. And so on and so on. Thank you.
I wanted to add something to the safe space thing. Has anybody here been at Reeperbahn Festival this last week? Okay, so there was this case of Warner Music Night, and one of the acts cancelled, one of the headliners. So they added a last-minute addition, another headliner that actually has dubious content, is a dubious personality. And there was a lot of outcry about why he was booked into the festival. And there were two statements given, one by the festival arguing, okay, this was a last-minute decision, Warner Music Night, we wish we had been informed sooner about this, and we could have discussed why we would not agree with booking this act as a last-minute headliner. There was the Reeperbahn Festival's answer, and then Warner Music did something funny. They explained how open they are, how pro-humanity they are, and that they they didn't use the word feel sorry, but they sort of put the blame back to the listener, saying, if we are sorry that you don't like that type of music, so you don't agree with our decision putting this.
Who was it?
Bowser, yeah. I found that quite weird, and I started that I was reading something and trying to understand why they were doing this at the festival, because there were protests, and then I was being forced to I was blamed myself for not liking they were basically blaming me, and I was taking it personally for not agreeing with them, and they were saying it's my personal decision whether I accept this or not. Which, okay, but I started thinking about these safe spaces. Like, is this the way to go, that everything is going to be separated, that I will know, okay, Vogue is always following, they will only book the politically correct acts, they will only allow people, and they will always be inclusive.
I think even told it or answered it already. It's the hell on earth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incest, in a way. Yeah, it's artistical incest. You know, we all listen to Christian rock, and everything will be fine for the rest of our lives. Okay, enjoy it.
If you're not
fun,
Muslim or
yeah, of course.
Muslim.
If you're in your little community and nobody looks different than the other, and everything is just as cozy as God wanted it in their minds, yeah, it's bullshit. Yeah? Safe space and rock music or pop culture not happening. No? It's just a big made-up bullshit.
It's a jungle, and it should be a jungle, you know. It's,
yeah,
of course.
I know there's a certain allergy to the term safe space, but I would.
Not from me. I love the word safe space.
I've heard it now. I've encountered this many times, and even though the idea behind it sounds extremely annoying, of creating a safe space where we ban certain content, we don't allow it. But for a lot of minorities, this is super important. Just having a place where you actually feel safe. I remember the first time I encountered this at university. There was a room only for women. I felt horrible. I wasn't allowed to go in at this, left-wing bar. about it, it's like, it's, for every minority, it's important to have a place where you can meet and you can discuss your needs without, you know, being criticized or being seen by the other that you are afraid of, actually, the majority. And that's why I think a safe space, for example, festival, or a safe space concert venue or something is totally fine. And I feel that we have this fear that this is going to lead to massive censorship and nobody will be allowed to listen to Michael Jackson anymore and so on. This isn't going to happen. Like, it's just allowing people who, especially minorities of whatever sort of is, people of color or transgender or whatever, but just allowing them to have a space where they can be alone and talk amongst each other and feel safe for a while, at least a couple hours a day, is completely fine. And where they can decide what sort of music they want to allow. And they're still a minority, so the big business is not threatened by this. And it's actually something that will lead to, I think, more exchange, because when people who are like-minded can get together, talk about their position and protect their positions and feel safer, in the majority it will lead to something good. So even though maybe the idea behind safe spaces sounds severely annoying because it's exclusive, on the long term it can be more inclusive because we're strengthening smaller groups this way by, so to say, being okay with that, yeah? And
letting them grow.
Can I think, you know, of course I understand the idea of the safe space, and I think it should exist, you know, for, I don't know, people in trouble, threatened women and so on, etc., children, immigrants, whatever. But, you know, living in the world of like-minded people, again, as I said, I don't want to.
But it's not called the safe world, it's called the safe space.
The safe space, but you know, I think it's the biggest problem is if there are only like-minded people together. I mean, what do you have to talk to them? Nothing. I mean, because you agree about everything.
It's like
Yeah, with all due respect, I mean, you belong to the most privileged group, from what I understand, probably is, you know, like, we're white people in Europe,
In what terms?
guys especially.
Yeah.
So we're fine. We're not talking about us.
I have my own frustrations, you know, it's not...
We're excluded from the group.
I mean, I can understand that it's boring for you. Not
Not boring.
No,
I wouldn't say boring. I think
I'm not about the safe spaces. No, okay.
I'm not about...
I agree with you that talking to only like-minded people can be boring, and also only Christian rock blah can be boring. But I think there's so much in between the one extreme Christian rock, as we funnily named it now, and artists who did crimes and abused people and stuff like that. So I think, just because you accept some people that are did abuse other humans, the music industry will not be happy-peppy all the time. There's so much in between. So I think that's not the thing.
Since Christian rock is mentioned here so often. I mean, let's go
That's
back to
bad.
Christianity, you know, after all, you know, Christ said, you know, you should forgive everybody. And then he will become a part of your flock, so to say.
I think we mixed a lot up here now in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, there was this safe space thing, which I didn't get at the first place. Then I'm with you, yeah, over there. Hi. That I remember this year I had the mispleasure to be at the Novak festival, and they had a safe space for women, women camping only. And I thought this is a brilliant idea, because women should be left in peace, and if they decide to go there, great. Yeah, no such thing. But creating artificially safe spaces, this is what he even I think means when he says it's boring as hell. Yeah, I mean, the audience, minorities, should be kept safe, yeah. And also, I'm a little bit afraid that this might be another happy-peppy safety ghetto after some point, yeah. So I don't know if it's really working all the way through. But who am I? I don't know, yeah. But we mix. I didn't get it in the first place. What's the fucking safe space for pause or what? Sorry. What does that mean? Could you maybe explain this?
Bowser. No, it's just, no. I was just thinking that what will happen if if I will only be going to gigs where I know what to expect, basically what you just said, that everything will be like in bubbles, and we will all keep in our same bubble. There will be the commercial space that books every band, just as long as they bring the audience, and then there will be the politically correct spaces and the spaces that promote safeness and inclusivity on the other hand. So I was just wondering what will become in such a concert world if everything is so separated, like you said. But we only have we will close off soon, but you wanted to ask something.
I wanted to have your point on last year's movie, A Lot of Chaos, about the history of the band Mayhem, which was kind of disturbing for me because there have been convicted murders within the band. There was a suicide, and which was praised and made a popularity. You're not familiar with Mayhem?
That's the Norwegian metal band? No, I didn't watch that.
Because it was in a situation where we had already Me Too movements and everything around it, and being navigated towards political correctness, suddenly becomes a producer from Norway or from Sweden, which is able to collect money and make a movie about a pretty bizarre, softly speaking, moment in the history of rock music, with members killing each other and killing other people.
I have no idea.
It still goes to theater and is watched around Europe. And takes it as a culture. For me, it was a very disturbing moment to see it, especially within the timing.
I have no idea.
I think we should accept that even criminals make music sometimes. See Charles Manson, Charles Manson. I'm with you. It's
and Tarantino.
Oh, Tarantino.
I mean, I've seen the film Mayhem. Yes, it's apparently they were even inspired partly by Laibach. So I heard some advertisement of Laibach. But yeah, it's the whole genre in Scandinavia. Actually, they're not the only ones. You know, the actual black metal, death metal in Scandinavia is really extreme, so to say. It's.
Well, one thing is idolizing through selected groups on internet. The other thing is to take a blockbuster $10 million movie.
It's not it wasn't a blockbuster. It's an independent. No, it's an independent film.
Still a significant budget.
Not really. It's an independent film that is shown on bizarre small festivals, more or less. It's never going to go into big cinemas. It's basically for a specialized audience, and I'm not trying to defend Mayhem or the director, but it's the same as a film about other criminals or Second World War or whatever. I don't know.
I know what I will do on my Sunday off now. We will. I would want to close off with two things. You will be on a panel with Isabella Kohm. Is Isabella here? Maybe no. A fantastic journalist. She will be hosting the interview just solely on your musical career, which is happening at. Does anybody know? Do you know when it's happening? In an hour, I think. Yeah, 3.
15 minutes past
3. 15 in this room or in the other room? In this room, we will meet again and listen to Ivan and talk about his life.
Can I just say something
yes?
at the end? I mean, I have to say, I've seen lots of musicians and artists, and I wasn't very inspired by most of them in private life. But, some of them are really doing good music, and even if they are assholes. And generally, I mean, we are dealing with something that is called art, although this word I don't like to use that much. But art is, to a certain extent, trying to define the substance of the zeitgeist, the substance of the time and the metaphysics. Most of art is bullshit. It's bad because it's very rational. It deals with market directly. It's cheap, so to say, and but you simply have to let. You cannot put such obstacles into the into the world of art, because then it would really, as I said before, being boring. And I don't like to use this word also because it's not all, of not being boring and so on. But, it's, you know what I want to say. I'm sure you do.
I'm going to change the word obstacle to discussion, and I think... Yeah.
Let all the flowers
grow? Oh, now
grow,
we're turning into hippies.
as Mao Zedong said.
Are you a secret hippie?
No, I'm quoting Mao Zedong.
Oh.
Flowers grow best on dead people.
To close off, I just wanted to mention somebody who's not here, but somebody you all know, and somebody who answered the very question of our panel in his letters. His name is Nick Cave. He has a project called Red Hand Files. And in one of his Red Hand Files, we can't see it anymore, but he is talking about, he's asked by a fan about his love for Morrissey and Dubious performers. And he is saying one good answer, which is, perhaps it is better to simply let Morrissey have his views, challenge them when and wherever possible, but allow his music to live on, bearing in mind we are all conflicted individuals, messy, flawed, and prone to lunacies. So these are my final words. Thank you so much. Enjoy Waves, and see you at the gigs. Thank you.